All right, we are live. Today is Thursday, April 23rd, and this is our weekly developer check-in for Backdrop Cms. Let's start by having everyone introduce themselves. Greg, do you want to go first?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Greg, usually located in Australia, but now back with my family in Greece. I've missed a couple of 2 or 3 last meetings, so I've joined to just keep up with what's been happening lately and help as much as I can.
Nate, do you want to go next?
I'm Nate Lampton in Oakland, California, core committer, and I'm working on getting things reviewed to keep things unblocked. So that's it.
Matthias?
I'm Matthias from Switzerland. I'm a site builder slash front-end developer using Backdrop quite a lot. And the goal is to keep up with the current development.
Tim?
I am Tim, St. Paul Tim, here in Minnesota, and particularly interested in checking in on that search API issue today.
Luke? Luke, are you there? You look frozen. Why don't we skip Luke and go on to Joseph?
I am Joseph from Las Vegas. I'm a backend developer and just here to see how I can help.
I just saw Luke blink.
Don't smile. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I was wondering if that would happen. I'm Luke McCormick with a currently kind of spotty internet connection here in San Ramon, California. I'm mostly interested in product marketing and issues like that related to Backdrop, but I like to keep plugged into the underpinnings as well, so that's why I'm here, but I probably won't say much.
Great. I'm Jen Lampton. I'm also from Oakland, California, and I am excited about 1.16. All right, let's see. Let's turn it back over to Nate for an update on project commits.
Sure. So as always, we're working on the on regular bug fixes. 1.15.2 will be the next bug fix release. Yet to be seen when that will happen. I guess it's possible that 1.15 may go the entire cycle with only one interim bug fix release, and that was a security fix that coordinated with Drupal. So that would be, in a way, kind of neat. 1.15.2, we don't have any urgent issues to discuss during these meetings. However, there are 65 issues that have been bumped into the 1.15 bug fix milestone over on GitHub. So we do have a number of items that could be fixed at any time. However, we don't really have any of those that look like that are in a state that's ready to go. There are a large number of them that need review though. So I don't have anything to say on 1.15.2 other than go and check out that list of issues. Those things can be moved in at any time once they're ready. Do you guys have anything you'd like to bring up regarding bug fixes? Okay. 1.16 is the next feature release, the minor release that will be coming out May 15th with feature freeze on May 1st. That is a Friday. And per the discussion from last week, it will actually be on May 1st, as it's not landing on a weekend or a holiday or anything. So that's a week from tomorrow. So things that we've got to work through before that time. First one that we've got up here is base and sub install profiles is an issue that Peter, BW Panda, has been working on, issue 3174. He's not here today, but the update on that one is that we might not, even though the code has been implemented, we might not pursue that functionality at all. There's been some discussion about a workaround that can be used to imitate something kind of like sub install profiles without actually having any kind of core support. But the issue with this one in general is that it's difficult to test. And so functionality that is maybe not incredibly common and is also difficult to test makes a poor combination. So we'll see if that workaround ends up being suitable for Peter's situation and for others, and then possibly we can just say, okay, this is a workable solution without any modifications to core in the first place. So 31's, what's that?
Is that something that needs documentation, just documentation on how it's done then?
I don't know if it really even makes sense for official documentation. It could be an interesting blog post, or could be made an example or something like an examples module. Maybe not. I'm not sure if examples module contains profiles. But really, I think once there are examples out in the wild, like that could be suitable for most people figuring out how to do that same thing.
Would just be nice to have something at the end of this link saying that we didn't do this, but here's where you can go to get information about it.
Yeah, especially in the issue, there should at least be something for people that search and run across the same thing.
Yep.
So that workaround is basically being evaluated if it's suitable at this point. So next up is 1032, a new user interface for text formats. Gregory, you're the advocate for this issue. Can you give us an update?
Yeah, I have to admit that my update might be stale because I haven't touched base with a lot of like what's happening recently in Backdrop land, lack of time. But last it was that we implemented a solution that involved duplicating the work of forms being opened in dialogues, and then when the dialogue was closing, then we would transfer those settings that were saved into the hidden forms of the actual form. This was not an acceptable solution, but Doc Wilmot would then refactor that, which he did. I did a review. So that's where I'm at. Then Jen, I think, also did the last review. So maybe Jen, you can provide some info.
I don't remember. I'll have to go re-review it.
I think the latest commentary was that there is a bug, first of all, and then secondly, I think that saving settings in the dialogue sometimes doesn't actually reflect when you close the dialogue. The page underneath doesn't get updated right away.
Yeah, it was, I think, a jQuery issue where the page underneath like actually renders all the buttons. And so if you like add an image tag, it needs to move the image tag. And so that none of that's working. Or if you add an image tag, it's supposed to add the image tag in the allowed HTML tags. You add the image button. So there's just a correlation there that's not working anymore.
And that was custom JavaScript, I think, that's in the CK editor module when you drag in and out toolbar buttons like that.
And Doc Wilmot did say that he would like help with the jQuery. He said that's not his strong point. So if anyone here has experience with jQuery and can take a look at that code, that would be great.
Yes, that rings a bell. I remember disabling some of the options and then saving the form and then having to re-edit it in order to see the buttons either reappear or disappear as expected. Yeah. May I say that even with that bug in place, that the UI is like the user experience bug is solved mostly by.
I think it's still critical that we get that in, because if you add an image button and the image tag isn't allowed, it's going to seem broken.
Yeah, fair enough.
So we need to get that fixed, but I think it's really
was that reflected in the actual instance of the CK editor, or was it only in the? Because when I tested it, it would only come up in the settings of configuring like that specific format.
What would?
So if you disabled one of the filters And that filter was supposed to remove one of the buttons from being available. See how when you are in the format configuration page, at the top, there's the bit where you can drag the buttons. Say I would disable a filter that has a respective button, it wouldn't go away when I disable that filter. I would have to save the form, which would redirect me to the list of all the formats, and then I would have to go and re-edit it, and then it would not be there, the button. But it seemed to me, I don't remember, it was like 3 weeks ago when I tested it, but I think the actual instance, like if you tried as a user to edit it, the button would work as expected. It would either be there if the filter was ticked or not be there if it wasn't.
Yeah, I remember the buttons working on the node edit form being what I wanted, but on the configuration form not being what I wanted. But I still think allowing someone to configure an editor that has a button that doesn't have an allowed HTML tag is a problem. And it was a huge problem in Drupal. It was really frustrating, and we fixed it in Backdrop, and I would hate to have a regression there.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Okay, so that one's still kind of going along. Mostly, Doc Wellmont has still been really on top of addressing feedback for the most part. And even though Jen did leave that feedback 6 days ago, it looks like garnering more feedback and a more frequent review cycle will make it so that those things get corrected more quickly. And I don't think we really, other than the jQuery request, I think Doc Wellmont can really cycle on the development pretty quickly.
Did we have anyone raise their hands for helping with jQuery specifically? One of the users? No. Okay.
Yeah, I'll probably end up getting my hands in there.
Yeah,
I have yet to
but-
actually do the code review, so when I do that, that'll probably end up doing some jQuery too.
Yeah, that would be great. Because I'm not sure who's the jQuery wizard or the other team, I guess, jQuery wizard team that we should be picking in situations like this. Otherwise, it's a shame to bring the one great feature like 90 or 95% there and just miss it because of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one's a good one for assuming that we can get all of the known issues worked out. You know, that one would, even if we're not totally 100% about it, we would probably merge it in before feature freeze and then correct it in the 2-week cycle.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay, next up is allowing forward revisions, 4354. Let's see, it says an update from Doc Wellmont or Tim. Tim, are you able to give us an update on forward revision capability?
Well, I can just say that we at the last week we talked about this extensively. Pretty much decided to take out all of the UI for this and just work on the back end, the capability to designate, I think, different statuses for revisions. It looks like Doc Wellmont has a pull request. I haven't looked at it, and I'm to be honest, if the UI has been taken out of it, I'm not sure like what I can do to review it. So I think the next step is like, yeah, how do we test this to see if it does what it should, and who needs to look at that.
Yeah. So last comment from Doc Wellmont that I saw was that it was a pull request with like 50 some commits, and only the two of them, the two initial ones, was the basic API. So he wanted to revert to that thing, basically get all the rest of the commits out and file a separate PR for them. I'm not sure. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, looking at this, it's much shorter, and actually looks like it's for the most part just like cleaning things up, honestly. Cool. That looks good. But yeah, like you say, Tim, code review, it seems like that's probably about the only thing to be implemented here. There is, it looks like some test additions, because the only way this can be tested is through code. currently. So there's some simple additions that looks like he just tries creating a node and then saving a revision and then checking to make sure that the database tables all came out the way that he expected. Okay, so great. That basic, so status of that one overall is needs review, code review. Okay, great. That's seems to have remarkable clarity from where we were for the entire release cycle. Excellent.
Does anybody know, with Doc Will not here, how likely or possible it is to take the UI work he did and get that into contrib? Is that possibly much harder than it sounds like it should be, or not?
I don't really know. I would be, it definitely isn't going to be quite as easy. I don't think, because altering is never quite the same as just like modifying the code directly.
Okay.
I'm sure it's possible, but it's probably a bit more difficult to get all those alters in place.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Thanks.
So it says that the feature freeze is May 1st. So usually, and that's a Friday from what I see in my calendar. We usually, if there's a weekend or a public holiday, we usually, what was the decision this time? Are we going to extend it for the weekend or not?
It was discussed last week and rejected.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
cool.
it'll actually be Friday. Yeah, the 1st.
Okay.
But we did decide that we were, since Nate was probably going to be looking at the code this weekend, we're going to do a little mini code sprint this weekend in preparation for it, so that we won't be working during the middle of the week next week on stuff anyway. So if we could sort of do that crunch early, I think that would be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, and last up in the list of still in progress features for 116 is allowing customization of the author and date display, also known as the submitted by line. The issue number is 2379. Tim, you're the advocate for this. Do you have an update?
Well, kind of turn it back to you, Nate, because it looks like you have worked on that since last week. And again, I haven't actually went and looked at it yet, but I think you solved some of the problems with tests, and it looks like the status is code review. Do you need somebody else to look at your code, or what?
There's some weird discrepancies happening. The code is all fine, but I found that there's an option for updating the way that the submitted by line looks for nodes and the way the submitted by line looks for comments. There's two options added to the node type form. However, both core themes, Basis and Bartik, don't use the submitted variable in their comment templates. And so you can change that setting, but nothing happens because they're both individually printing out the author in one place and then the date in another place. The core comment template does use that variable. So it's possible if you were running a contrib theme that was using that or used it explicitly that it would work. But I feel like having an option in core that wouldn't be obvious and wouldn't work with the core themes is a bad experience.
Should we fix the core themes then, and should it be as part of that ticket or follow up?
So fixing the core themes is interesting because it literally changes the way that the core themes display their information, because like Basis is putting the author in one location and then the date in a completely different part of the template. So they're not next to each other. Like the submitted by line assumes both of them together. So my suggestion is that maybe we just nix it from the comments, like take out the comment setting. Actually, I haven't even suggested this in the issue, but I'm thinking the most direct way forward would be if we removed the comment setting, only kept the node setting, the one that's actually used by core, and then only had this customization available for nodes and not for the comments.
I don't know. That's something that as a theme developer, I find really frustrating is when you fix the submitted line on nodes and it doesn't fix on comments. having the ability to set it the same way, I think would be beneficial. I don't know how to get around the problem where the
Existing sites.
basic theme separates them. I mean, that's a perfect example of how you want to separate them, which I think is also important to have in core. I wouldn't think fixing it would be a solution, but yeah,
Well,
this is now the problem where the theme has the last say. And if we build a user interface in core that provides a feature and the theme chooses not to use it, it's going to be very confusing if that's our base theme that does like the core theme that does that.
We could also, another brain just idea is that the submitted byline, I think, is the same for comments and for nodes. Currently, it's just submitted by author name and then date, or dash and then date. If they're the same between nodes and comments, we could work with the loose assumption that whatever submitted by setting you have for nodes, we also apply to comments of that same type. And then at least the submitted byline is customized, but it applies to both the node and the comments, even though the comments discard the setting with the core themes.
So the setting would be on the comment entity or in the pre-process layer, but it wouldn't actually be rendered in the template. Is that?
We would pull from the node type setting rather than hard coding the submitted byline for comments, but using the tokens for nodes. We would use the tokens in both places, but we would only have one configuration option at the node level.
I like that better than not allowing people to customize the comment submitted byline.
Yeah, but the token that is used for the creation for comment specifically is comment.
No.
Right. Yeah, it wouldn't work.
So if that worked, it would have been a good compromise, I guess. But the way that Nate described the problem with the themes, it seemed to me that it's a bug with our themes that we should fix. So this feature is something that people expect to be working with all themes. And if people were to do it, I would use the word proper way, it would work. What is not working is our core themes because we have not thought of that situation and we have customized them to a point where it doesn't work as expected.
We can't change the markup in the core themes now because it'll change the markup. So it would have to get pushed to Backdrop 2 if we wanted to fix the rendering of comment submitted by information.
Well, this is unlikely to be solved quickly, but we have been talking in the past about how to add CSS changes to core bases that might break previous sites by having some sort of revisioning where they only affected new sites and not, people would have to deliberately, and I don't know if that could be applied to, so that we could make the changes to the templates and basis, but only have them apply to new sites.
It's a lot more complicated than like adding a style sheet is pretty straightforward to do, like include or don't include, but interrupting the like render pipeline to insert a new template or not is a little more complicated. And I'm not sure we want to get that deep in the weeds. We could, maybe we should create an issue to talk about it, but I think it's going to create complexity that's going to be really confusing.
Okay.
I recall this conversation now that Tim mentioned it, and I understand the concerns that Jen brought up, but pulling out the we care more about end users rather than developers. I understand the overhead, but our philosophy is that we fix things for end users and we worry about how hard it is for developers second.
We're also supposed to value simplicity, and if we put an alter into our theme render pipeline,
this is something that I brought up.
I think we should open an issue. It's worth a discussion. So question here is, Tim, is it worth adding this setting for nodes only now because we can get that in and it's approved, and then postpone comment until we figure out how to do it in a way that's sane? That's kind of what I think.
Yeah, follow up.
Okay. So maybe we
it really seems like most people are really concerned about the nodes anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the fact that lots of people are like, yes, I do this all the time. This feature looks awesome. and everybody only cared about the node and nobody even tried the comment
the-
setting, I think says a lot.
The use case for comments is decreasing rapidly, just in the web in general, thanks to spam bots and what have you.
That's also true. Just core comments especially are not robust enough for a lot of people's use cases.
Yeah.
Yep, agreed.
Okay. So we reworked that pull request to just do nodes and then create a follow-up issue to figure out comments.
Should I add a comment on that issue along the lines of what was decided here?
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, in that case, great. That's it for the features in the 116 release that aren't yet completed. Let's see, we also have some initiatives, small discussion about that we have the forum that includes a, what's it called, a section, a topic for initiatives. And the current discussion is ongoing there about initiatives that we're likely to work on for the 117 release. And May 7th is our tentative date for discussing which of those initiatives we want to pursue for 117. So check out the forum, the initiatives section, and add your voice and thoughts there on anything that you think should be given large scale attention for the next release. Anybody else have anything to add on initiatives? Okay. Great. Okay. General discussion. There's an event happening not this weekend, but the weekend afterwards on May. Oh wait, maybe I shouldn't be the one saying this. There's a thing happening next weekend. What is it?
Week from tomorrow, CMS Philly. It's a all-day virtual conference. Backdrop, Drupal, WordPress, and a couple of other smaller CMSs. Gregory, did you want to say some stuff?
That it's on Friday, May the 1st, and this year is happening online. And two presentations on Backdrop were approved. One is for Team's presentation on layouts, and then the other one is myself presenting on mostly. I haven't figured out the exact way that this would work out, but basically it's presenting Backdrop as an optimal solution for people that are not ready to move to D8 inside of D7's end of life.
My session was also selected. It's on how to move to Backdrop CMS.
Okay.
And Luke,
Three sessions.
Get in touch with you after the meeting.
Super.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think registration is like $20 for this event, isn't it? Does anybody remember? There was a small discount for presenters. Anything else people need to know? I don't know. I would encourage people to support this event because we support the idea of open source CMS camps events that are cross-platform. And so it would be great if we could turn out some people at this to show support for this kind of an event.
Yeah, and they accepted 3 of our sessions, so they're very friendly to Backdrop, so that's important.
And they added us to the list of CMSs on the front page, which we weren't there to start with. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, and with our the way that our community functions, we're highly distributed, and it's difficult to collect people all in the same place. So even though this is a virtual event, it plays to our favor, really, that it's not in a geographic location. So yeah, another great reason to support this. Okay, let's see. We also have, there's been a lot of discussion recently about the status of search in core. I'm not actually sure. I'm not a good person to summarize this, I don't think, because I haven't seen the discussions. Matthias or Greg?
Yes, I could try it.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
Basically, for me, search was always important. and it made me hesitate to switch to Backdrop. And now I use Backdrop a lot, but I still have plenty of sites which make heavy use of Search API. And there was a discussion about having a better search in core, but from my personal perspective, Search API is pretty good, pretty great. It fulfills all my needs for all my sites. And then I lost track, and maybe a week ago, a guy called Dan from Oxford, UK, asked me if I could help him with moving that forward in the issue queue of GitHub. And I said, no, I might not be the guy, but I will tell other people what to do. And then Tim came in and answered, and that's the status. And I promised to get a summary about current search and core, what is planned, if there's something planned for the future. Maybe, yeah.
Question for you. What do you use Search API for on your sites?
Searching content. I use it in several Drupal commerce installations.
Are you connecting to like Apache Solr, or I mean, what is the API?
On some sites, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
But internal is also pretty powerful. And for me, it's also important when I write a proposal, it's always a good upselling feature. Hey, you want a better search than the competitors? Here it is. Take a look at the demo. And people are excited.
So I think the reason I was against Search API in core is that we're assuming that Backdrop's target audience won't have an external search engine to use, like they won't have Apache Solr, access to Apache Solr. But I'm curious if the Search API module contains features that improve core search without connecting to an external API. And if so, I would love to see those make it into Backdrop's core search so that we can have that compelling customizable search experience without needing somebody to have access to a tool that they're likely not to have in order to use it. I don't want to put anything in core that people can't use with Backdrop itself. Like we removed syslog because that requires that you have access to set up logging on your server. And there's just stuff that people aren't going to be able to do on shared hosts. But that doesn't mean that all the features that are in there don't belong in Backdrop. So yeah, we have a longstanding issue about how Backdrop core search alone is not sufficient. There's a lot of issues with it. There's a lot of just cruft left over from 10 years ago when it was put in there and never been looked at since. And I would love to see some attention spent on it. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I, for one, am in favor of improving it. But I think the API part where it connects to an external service needs to remain a contrib module.
Yeah.
So finding some happy balance.
Absolutely.
I have some thoughts, but I'm ambivalent when it comes to that. So Drupal 8 core has allowed, without having to install any other modules, to be able to embed videos from YouTube and Vimeo, because these seem to be the most common services used. So the agency that I work for supports GovCMS, which is a distribution for government in Australia. And the platform is using Solr as well. But people have been bringing up, I'm not sure if you guys heard it, Lunar as well, spelled L-U-N-R, which is an alternative. So again, we have two, similarly to the way that something was introduced in the 8 core, like YouTube and video, which are the most commonly used services when it comes to video hosting, I guess. I'm not sure how much we can accommodate what Jen said, improving the core certs and providing a hybrid between what we currently have and easily allowing to connect to Solr or Lunar. I'm not sure how much of that belongs to contrib, but I think it's a fact that people have been complaining for the shortcomings of Drupal core certs for a long time.
I just want to say it seems to me like well, not every time, but frequently when we put out a call to the public, like, hey, what do you want to see us work on in Backdrop, that somebody always mentions search. This is not something I run into a need for better search myself, but I do fairly frequently hear this from other people. Matthias, can you say again, you're using the search API module for Backdrop? Is that right? Is it working at all for you?
No, it's not ready.
Okay.
It throws errors.
Okay.
And it's not urgent. And I also think that it should stay a contrib module. I don't think it should be in core. But there was some discussion about improving it in the core. My goal today is to have a status, what's been happening or not.
The reported problems in the contrib queue for sets API, are they being blocked by anything that we are not doing or we should be doing in core? Or it's just that this is a call for focus on that contrib specifically because it's very commonly used?
I think Doug Wilmot created an initial version and said it's quite complicated. I can't recall the exact reason.
Yeah, so basically I was asking, is there something that we can do in core to help and block whatever problems have been reported? Or was the issue that there's not enough momentum or people working on it to help fix the issues that people are currently having?
I don't know.
Okay.
For me, if Search API is available, this would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's also important that we get a contrib version working because there are a lot of people, hopefully, going to be coming from Drupal that are already relying on it.
Mhm.
I don't know what the complexity is. I would imagine that it is very complicated. I also would imagine it would be very hard to develop in an environment where you don't have access to those things. But we do have access to Apache Solr. I think it's Apache Solr, it might be Lucerne on Pantheon. And we might be able to look at the Pantheon suite of modules that's in the Backdrop Pantheon upstream and see if they have a Pantheon Apache Solr integration piece, because that could be a really good place where we could work on and test that. So I don't know if anyone in this room has time to work on it, but if anyone watching this video later is really passionate about search, that's definitely something I think that is important for us.
So just to be clear, if anybody isn't, this Dan, Matthias, did you just see Dan in the issue queue, or do you know him outside of the issue queue?
I met him in the issue queue.
Okay.
I don't know him, but I will contact him tomorrow.
Sure. So he just popped into the issue queue, and it basically looks like he maintains, it sounds like multiple sites, Drupal 7 sites.
Yeah.
And they're basically evaluating Backdrop, and he said that the inability or a lack of search API would be a blocker for them. Now, the other thing, it wasn't clear to me, Matthias, if he said he was willing to help, but I wasn't sure if he has the coding skills to like help with fix bugs, or if he was just talking about testing.
Apparently he has a team.
Okay.
But I have to make sure tomorrow.
Yep.
I will ask him.
My sense has been that the search has just been held up by the lack of somebody with the skills and the motivation to work on it, right? And that,
yes.
Probably other people in the community would support somebody who stepped up and took initiative, but none of our active contributors have just felt like it was enough of a priority to. Does that sound right to everybody?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Olaf made this comment, and he actually provided links to 4 specific comments, and they're all in the same issue number 1 for that module. So the entire discussion is happening in issue number 1 of the sets API.
Yep.
So it sounds like the general direction here is that the contrib module search API needs to be, or should be, better maintained and supported. But I think parallel to that, there's a lot of room for improvement in core search to make it better. So that search API continues to be like, if you need more complex search, then search API is the way to go. But core search is also like, it's not great. Like, it's really, Just the way that it works is just really kind of dumb too. Like that, how it makes the tabs for like search by content, search by users. Like it's really
So
crazy.
this was basically the argument that was brought up when this discussion was happening for Drupal 6 and Drupal 7, that the current implementation of certs is so crappy that it would be better to replace it with something like Certs API. And the counter arguments to that is that Certs API mostly relies on third-party services, which is, yeah, we need to be trading lightly.
And Search API is wildly complex, like the way that it operates. And it also requires substantial configuration. It's not like turn on and go. It's like turn on and then configure for half an hour. And then it kind of works. And then it requires a lot of refinement. So I don't know. I guess
think
it should be possible.
There's a lot we could learn from it, though. Like, I don't necessarily think we should take this code and put it in core the way it is, but I think we could look at what is produced with a really good search experience using Search API and saying, okay, they have a way that you can customize facets. We need to figure out how to do that in core. They have a way that you can like put all of the things together and have the node content user be like separate, I don't know, links or something. We should figure out a way to put that in core. And we'll probably land on very different solutions than the way that Search API does it. But I think that the end result could end up being rather similar. And if we end up having a really complicated configuration for it, as long as we set the defaults to work the way people expect in Backdrop, they may never need to see that form. Like we could just say, these are all of the facets and this is the way they're configured, and you get relevancy, date, and author or something like that. And then maybe that's enough for everyone and they don't need to go in there anymore. I don't know.
The more we keep mentioning this, the more issues like that we are having in Backdrop, like the flag side, the flagship side, with people searching for modules and not coming up the right order or in the project browser, they come to my mind, and that's all because of the way that core certs does not work as expected. So if it has taken us so long to sort of like try to fix core certs, I'm not sure how much more complicated the simple, like a simple version of Certs API would be, like a stripped down version with just the basics would be. So yeah, I have not taken a look at the code and I wouldn't be able to judge that. We would need someone with more experience.
I can help with scenarios, and currently I'm building a views-only search solution in Backdrop, which is also pretty powerful. It's better than the core search. Views is powerful.
We could switch to views instead of our core search, and that would be something that could be backwards compatible, because we could have it be like anyone who's previously installed Backdrop gets the version that's there now. Anyone who installs the new version loads views instead. So yeah, and I think, is there views integration with the search index in core?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that might be a reasonable first step where we could make a big improvement.
The next step I try to achieve is to have filtering search results by content type, by date, whatever. I'll try. I'm pretty optimistic that views is a good starting point for improving search in Backdrop.
Yeah.
In terms of tangible things we could do, I'm just going to throw out there, if anybody were so motivated to write up like a blog post that said, here's the status of search, like what is available, where it's weak, where the work needs to be done, so that when we find somebody with some skills and motivation, we can point them and say, here's what has to happen. That seems to me like a good first step.
I'm happy to help with that. Someone has to proofread the content.
Sure. Okay. I think you can get people to do that.
Okay.
So we are over time. I added that item about the number format API there. I'm not sure if we have some time to discuss even lightly. So I was working on a same way that I do every time. I just picked a random problem and I started solving it, or trying to push an existing PR along. And then it came to presenting numbers to users. And in my tests, I created like thousands of nodes because it was related to certs, by the way. It's the issue that Alan Mills started with being able to limit which content types will be searched, will be indexed. So at some point, the index would present how many of the nodes were already indexed and how many are remaining. And this brought up the thousands numbers not having digital, this decimal and thousands, punctuation, and how this is different from country to country. So I know that I can use PHP functions, but that would make it so that we make it valid for, like, I don't know, US locale only. So the idea there is that D8 is already moving towards a format API for numbers in core, and I'll create a ticket to point to those tickets. Do we want to do something like that in Backdrop with respect to doing more for multilingual?
I think personal thought that internationalization should be a given in a CMS that is as comprehensive as Backdrop. Like, we really should be a global product that should work in every language, and in this case, every locale format for dates and numbers. Like, it's a weird omission that we support dates and interface translation and content translation, but not numbers. Like, it seems like a weird shortcoming.
Yeah, and my thought when I was doing that, I was trying to see how popular this would be in demand, and immediately I thought of eShops, which use currency, and currency requires digits, decimals and thousands.
Yeah, I think currencies is that's a whole nother thing.
No. That's why I immediately sort of like, I'm not talking about currency supporting currency, like in a field. I'm talking about plain numbers, but it would move. Yeah, sorry.
The commerce module actually has a function that just, you pass in a number and the currency code that goes with it, and then it checks the locale for that currency and then puts in the correct separators for it.
Yeah.
And we actually had a website that had the commerce module installed just to use that one function. We didn't actually have any products at all.
Yeah. So basically, I can't remember now with a PHP function that sort of like, I think it's called format number or something like that. What I was thinking would be something like Backdrop format number, which would be a wrapper to check which locale is currently selected, and then have presets that it would sort of like split the numbers. Like, it seems to me that it would be straightforward, but I haven't gone down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I'm looking at places where, so you're right, number format is a PHP function, and I'm just doing a search through core to see where we're using that function already, because we already use it because it's convenient to make it so that, commas are used for the thousand separators and stuff like that for the areas that use that, and it's useful for that purpose. So where numbers should be formatted, we're already using that function, but the places in which we're using it, it looks like it's usually a configuration option. In some cases, it's hard coded to use like a comma for thousands and a dot for the decimals. But like, the problem with that is that you're doing it in the configuration of the view or in the configuration of the field, in the case of a number field. And it depends not on the content, but on the locale that the user is viewing the site in. So you might need both on the same site, depending on which language or locale the user is using to view the content. It should change to match. So it sounds like the most direct way forward would be if we had settings for for if locales also had number formats associated with them somehow. I'm not quite sure where that would live, like in locale module or something like that, that when you set up a language and a locale, you'd also set up the number format for it. And then everywhere that we call number format, there would be some option to use the appropriate locale site-wide format instead. So like use the number format rather than the hard-coded comma or period configuration that's at the field or view level.
The good thing is that there's existing issues, long-standing issues as well for many years in d.org, and these discussions have already been had.
Right.
And there's so there's work that we can leverage. So what I'm going to do is maybe just create an issue and just point to those tickets, and I think that that's the way that they've done it as well, because there's certain languages that the decimals are even like they're not commas or dots at all. Like I think Arabic has a special, yeah. Anyway, so we need a UI, and I'm thinking locale, like sorry, language selection around there. Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah, but it definitely seems like core support is necessary because core itself contains number fields and contains views formatters for numbers. And so core probably needs to provide that support directly so that it itself can use it.
Yes.
Like contrib wouldn't really be sufficient. I hate having like if contrib module exists, do something like that's not a good behavior for core.
Yep. Okay, cool.
Okay, well, yep, I'm glad we fit that in, Gregory, but we are over time. We've only got 1 week left. We still have one more meeting before feature freeze. So we'll see you guys all again, hopefully, on April 30th, the day before our feature freeze. As Tim mentioned, some of us are providing extra allocation of our time this weekend to try to speed up the cycle of review and functionality. So there'll be kind of an all weekend long code sprint happening, meetup on Zulip, and of course in the GitHub issue queue. That's where the activity is going to be happening.
We might even want to open a Zoom meeting too, so we can chat real time.
Oh yeah, it's a great idea. And we would use this same channel that we use for the weekly meetings. That's a great idea.
Okay.
Did we set specific days and times, or whenever?
I put it on the Google Calendar that I'm not sure anyone other than Tim and myself use as 9 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday, but that's 9 to 5 Pacific. So that would be noon to 8 Eastern. I don't know what time that is.
I'm not sure that's actually helpful for anyone on this call.
But yeah, I would imagine people will join when they are available on those days. So I know for sure I'm not going to be available at 9 a.m. on Saturday. I'm going to be on a horse. But I will join as soon as I get back. So.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. Really appreciate it and enjoy these calls as always. So thank you guys, and we'll see you guys on the internet and talk to you guys next week.
Cool.
All right, bye, folks.